Hey, this is my dad, Daniel Meridian, and I guess I'm interviewing him about 9/11. So, Dad, what do you recall about life before 9/11? For example, things like traveling in an airplane or terrorist behaviors.
Well, before September 11th, 2001, I didn't really think about terrorists in the United States very much at all. It didn't happen really. It did, but it didn't so much. There were some big terrorist explosions. One was in New York. They tried to blow up the World Trade Center from the basement. That didn't work. And another one, which was pretty successful, was when they blew up the Murrah building in Oklahoma City, I want to say. But it was a federal building, and a crazy militia patriot guy named, can't think of his name at the moment, but anyway, he blew that place up with a truck bomb. That was terrible. But it was fairly isolated, and after 2001, it became more of a worry because people just worried about it more. But honestly, there was one big explosion or one big terrorist act on September 11th, and there haven't really been that many since. I think a lot of the terror attacks that have happened after have been due to the fact that we kind of stirred the pot up overseas, and now people really can't stand us. So I'm not sure whether there would have been that many more if we had done things a little differently.
Do you have any concerns now about terrorism?
Well, I think everybody has concerns about terrorism. My main concern about terrorism is that I'm concerned about it like everybody else, but I'm not that concerned about it. There have not been that many attacks. There are always a few. I think if people were concerned about terrorism, but a little less concerned maybe, and had a little bit different perspective on it, maybe we would behave differently, and we would do things differently in this country, and we'd all probably be better off for it. So people probably shouldn't freak out all the
time. Now, do you have anything you had any experiences that could kind of have foretold things like terrible airport security measures?
Well, not exactly. I don't know. It was an anecdote that I think is kind of funny, was that a couple of years before 9/11 happened, my brother and I went to the airport to pick somebody up. I don't remember who. Or maybe we just went there to visit the airport, because you could do that back then. You could just walk into the airport, have dinner, look at the airplanes, and come back. You couldn't walk around on the tarmac, but you could go in there. You could spend all day there if you wanted to. But we went one night, and we walked in, because you could pick people up at the gate at the time. So we went into the airport, and they checked us out, and both of us had knives like this pretty much in our pockets, and we were allowed in. And my brother had a keychain. It was a keychain, but it was about this long, and it was about this thick, and it was made out of aluminum and had a point on the end, and had his keys attached to the end of it. So that was his keychain, and they let him in with that. He basically had an ice pick. So things were different. They didn't really worry. Nobody cared. They didn't think we were going to do anything.
How about afterwards? What happened afterwards for you? What was the effect of maybe weeks later? Were you afraid in any way?
What do you mean after? You mean like now? Or you mean literally weeks, directly afterwards?
Like a few weeks later.
It was a very disconcerting time. But at the same time, I do remember that people really kind of came together after that happened. People were really friendly, and people were really polite for a while. Things seemed different and better than they are today, I would say. But eventually, everybody went back to being their same normal rude selves and whatnot. And here we are.
How about what happened the day of for you? What was your story?
You mean like where was I kind of thing?
Yeah.
Well, I was working with my cousin Paul, and we were in Livonia, I think on 6 Mile. It was either 6 Mile or 7 Mile, but I think it was 6 Mile at a house on the north side of the street, and we were working over there doing block work, laying the foundation for an addition on the house, and I was helping him. So anyway, his friend came over, Brett, And Brett said, it was about, I don't know, 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:30 in the morning, and he said, did you hear what happened? And we said, no, what are you talking about? And then he told us what happened. He told us the whole story about the airplanes and the buildings and whatever, and it was, I think only one airplane had hit it, or maybe both had hit it. I don't remember at that point. And we said, oh, really? And then Brett drove away, and Paul and I were talking about it for a minute, and I told Paul, I said, that's a bunch of hooey. And I said, that's a bunch of hooey. Can't believe, that is ridiculous. That's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard in my life. I said, I think it's a bunch of bullpucky, so I'm going to go inside and look on the television in the people's house. So I went into their house. We didn't usually go in their house. And I went into their house and checked. I'm looking at the television, but they didn't have... so I remember I was flipping through all the channels, and on every single channel, and they didn't have cable, so it was just the regular channels. It had the burning buildings, 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 and then on PBS they had Liberace, which I thought was funny. They were a little slower in picking it up. So a few minutes later, everybody had burning buildings, and that's when we kind of that was pretty much the end of the day. We worked for a little while longer. We gave up. It was everything pretty much came to a stop.
What is your most vivid memory of that day?
I think that is my most vivid memory of the day. Everything else, you were kind of in shock after that. I just remember that I went in there and I was in total disbelief, and then I looked at the television, and sure enough, no, something definitely happened.
Were you afraid for the safety of Mom and Grammy and Shaggy?
No, not in a literal sense. I mean, everybody was afraid that crazy things were going to happen, but I wasn't really afraid that anybody was going to bomb us in Royal Oak or Oak Park or something. No, not literally afraid for our safety. No, for the country's safety more than anything else. Or the people who lived in New York, you were afraid for them, but not really for the people who lived in, Ferndale or something.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel about the way the government reacted?
In retrospect, at first everybody was behind George Bush and the government and rah, and I think after that everything fell off the rails, and I think that they've done a particularly horrible job of reacting to all of this. I don't think they should have ever passed the Patriot Act. I don't think that spying on our citizens is useful. I don't think that they should have attacked. You could make an argument that they should have gone into Afghanistan and attacked Afghanistan, because that's where the Taliban had Osama bin Laden, and he was sort of in charge of the idea. I mean, he was the head of the group that did it, Al Qaeda, and you could make an argument that maybe we did the right thing there. But then they cooked up a whole bunch of lies about going into Iraq. He was going to make us safer. It's because he had weapons of mass destruction. He didn't. It was because he was involved in the bombing. He wasn't. So we went in there and we took over Iraq, and then we let the whole place fall into pieces. And so now, 15 years later, we're still dealing with the fallout of it. And we're still at war, and it's ridiculous. It never should have happened. A complete catastrophe. Thank you very much.
Now, do you think the decision to invade both of these places, and you seem to be very passionate about what happened in Iraq, do you think that affected us nowadays?
Absolutely.
Very strongly?
Afghanistan, I'm going to leave it aside. I mean, I think if we would attack, if we had taken over Afghanistan and used all the money that we subsequently wasted in Iraq on helping them to rebuild themselves, and maybe we could have done some good there, but maybe in retrospect, I don't even know if we should have attacked there, but there's a good argument to be made. But as far as, what exactly was your question?
Do you think that invading Iraq...
how did it affect things today?
Yeah.
It's made them immeasurably worse. I mean, I don't think that, at the time, Saddam Hussein, even though he wasn't a great guy, had really had his foot down on what was going on over there. And things they probably weren't wonderful. They were pretty peaceful, in a sense. And I'm not sure that people in Iraq, when they look back, I don't know that they look back at those times and say, boy, I'm really glad that the United States came in here and destroyed our country and look what we've got. So I think it did make it worse. I think it created a giant, first of all, we wasted, I don't know how many American lives, thousands of them, and thousands and thousands and thousands of injured Americans, and trillions of dollars. And then the Iraqi people we killed, millions of, I don't know, a million of them, maybe 500,000, many of them. They're all dead. The country's in a shambles. And then because we destroyed the place and backed a government that didn't take into account all its people, but only wanted only wanted Sunnis in power, not the Shias in power, not the Sunnis who were in power before, we end up with militias, we end up with them fighting each other, and then eventually we end up with ISIS, and now we've got a giant mess. So, yeah, no, I don't think it really did us any favors.
So, how do you think 9/11 changed our nation?
I think that there was a confidence, that America had a certain confidence about where it was in the world and how it would handle things and who we were before 9/11. And now after 9/11, after September 11th, we've done all these horrible things. We've had torture programs and horrible prisons we put people in. And when we didn't want to torture them that much, we sent them overseas to other people who could torture them for us. And what happened? We changed. I don't think all the people changed, but this country changed in a way for the worse, where we're not the same country we were before. America was never the country who did anything like that. We were always the good guys. Now that may be a little naive, but that's the way people felt. And after that, after 9/11, after September 11th, we pretty much ripped the mask off of that, and we saw who we really were. And I think we look scared. I mean, that's why I say, no, do I worry about terrorism all the time? Absolutely not. People freak out. And people are freaking out, and they'll do anything, or allow the government and allow people to do anything, as long as they're keeping us safe. And, yeah, it's important for the government to keep an eye on things. That's why we have spy agencies and things. But there's laws, there's due process, there's a constitution, and we're supposed to be the good guys. And when we compromise all of those things just to keep ourselves safe, and we end up not being that safe anyway, it may make it worse. I don't think it does us any favors, and the country is fundamentally different than it was 20 years ago.
Now, how do you think that's affected the way people view politics, like, in America now? Like, with the 2016 election coming up, do you think that terrorism is influencing the views of people?
There are a lot of people who will vote for anybody that they think is going to keep them safe. They don't care how they do it. And you have one candidate who's running around saying that he'd torture the heck out of people, and he would, I think it was a quote, that he would bomb the shit out of ISIS. I mean, I'm sorry, that's what he said. So that's what the guy said. I'm quoting him. And when you have people who will vote for somebody like that just because they're terrified and they think that the only way to take care of the problem is to bomb, and torture, and it's okay as long as we're safe, I don't think they even understand what makes us safe, what doesn't make us safe. I mean, the way to make it safe is to make people who want to blow us up not hate us. No, you can't just go over there and pat them all on the back. And now we have a problem we have to take care of. But we're supposed to show people how to act, and we don't. So now we've got people who are running for office who they just want to show how strong they are and what they want to do. And we got two candidates really who want to be very, very muscular in their foreign policy, and we got one that is kind of off his rocker and doesn't care what we look like. So it's depressing to me.
What do you want students to know about September 11th?
Well, I never really think about it, but I guess my point is that, horrible things happen all the time, and they don't happen constantly, but bad things do happen. And the important thing to remember is who you are and who you're supposed to be as a person and as a nation, and then to respond to those crises based on your image of yourselves. If you have to change all that to respond, you're probably making a mistake. It's important to remember that bad things happen, but they go away. And you have to react in a measured way